Welcome to the Unwebinar. This is Master B2B, and it's a format where we take on the key issues in B2B e-commerce for manufacturers and distributors. My name is Brian Beck. I'm thrilled to be joined again today by Andy Hoare in our series where we're taking on a key issue around marketplaces and channel conflict. For those of you who don't know Andy, he is a longtime veteran of the e-commerce field. He ran B2B Ecommerce for Forrester Research for 7 years. He's now the CEO of Paradigm B2B. Andy, thrilled to be here with you today.
Yeah, great to be here again. This is two of my favorite subjects. I mentioned this on LinkedIn. Channel conflict and marketplaces, we're going to fuse them together. We'll get that in a moment. But for those of you who don't know Brian, Brian is a noted author. He wrote a book called $1 Billion B2B E-commerce. It's up here someplace on my shelf. I'm sure Brian's got a copy nearby as well. So Brian was a practitioner for many years, both on the B2C side and the B2B side. He's also been he's worked for a systems integrator. So he's checked every box out there in B2B e-commerce. So great to be here again with you, Brian.
Yeah, Andy. So yeah, hot topic today, and I've lived this firsthand. So, well, before we get into it, folks, this is a debate. We have 3 rounds. For those of you who haven't joined us before, we have 3 rounds of this debate. At the end of each round, we are going to ask the audience to contribute and vote on the key question. And at the end of the Unwebinar today, we will reveal the answer. We have who won the debate. We have a sponsor today, it's Spryker Systems. They will also be involved in the debate and subject to the same tough questions. So make sure you also contribute your comments and questions as we go through the session today. So again, this is an exciting topic, Andy, channel conflict and marketplaces, and for good reason. I mean, channel conflict is the number one reason why a lot of B2B companies don't engage in e-commerce. And so the key question is, can the marketplace model, be that company-owned marketplaces or third-party marketplaces like Amazon, really help to reduce the threat of channel conflict? Or does it just make it more complicated? Is the perception of channel conflict even greater than the reality when it comes to this question? So, and again, another hot one, Andy, we posted this guy on LinkedIn and got over 10,000 comments, shares, and likes. I mean, a hot topic. Who do you see joining us today?
Yeah, so we got a lot of great folks, some repeats and some new folks. So I would say we've got several people from Henkel.
Yep.
3M is here. As always, Mike Becker from Kimberly-Clark is here.
There's Mike.
Garrett Gert from Essity. So we've got, quite a laundry list of really fine folks here, and hope they chime in and ask some questions. We'll see if we can get them in the debate today. Yeah,
and we do definitely want you folks to answer asking questions. Yeah, I'm looking at who's logging in here too. I see Jerry Garcia. Is that actually the Jerry Garcia of the actually, Jerry's from Waters Corp. So good to see you, Jerry. Stanley Black & Decker's here. Avnet's here. I see Nick Becker from Avery Products. Stephen Javor's here again from Schneider. Hey, Stephen. Andy, check this out. Even Harvard Business School is joining this debate. So, hey, why not? This is it's an academic debate, but it's a very practical one as well. So, as I mentioned, we posted this, Andy, on LinkedIn twice. We got more than 10,000, likes and views and shares and such. And we did a poll and we asked the question: should B2B manufacturers launch their own online marketplaces to avoid channel conflict? And I'll reveal the answer in terms of how the audience voted at the end on LinkedIn on the end of our debate today. But suffice it to say, there was a ton of commentary, and, taking the side of marketplaces that they simplify things. Ken Novak, one of our longtime industry veterans and consultant now, he noted, marketplaces shouldn't cause conflict if you do them right. Interesting. He said, what causes conflict? Losing accounts and share of wallet due to non-participation. So I think Ken's arguing that, just not being in these marketplaces, whether your own or in a third party, is a bigger deal than conflict. And Jeffrey Hugerheid, from 3M, he agreed this is a way to meet customer needs. He said for manufacturers, company-owned marketplaces are where to buy on steroids. I like that, Jeff. That's a nice thought. So, look, Andy, there's varying opinions here, and we're going to hear from our practitioners today, our contenders, as we call them. But what are you seeing? Take us to the data, Mr. Data. Show us some examples, Andy, if you would.
Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion about what marketplaces are. We've addressed this issue in other webinars, but this is the first time we've kind of brought these two together. And I thought it'd be kind of helpful just to walk through a couple of examples. So as you see on the screen, here's an example of a company operator, company-owned marketplace through Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. You can see it's a ProLiant server, sales price of almost $5,000. And if somebody were to select this server, so next slide, you'd see that on HPE's site, there are several companies that actually fulfill this. Now, there isn't an example here of HPE doing it, but they do sell as well. And so that's really kind of the definition of a marketplace, where you have sort of the company that owns and operates it selling, as well as third-party sellers. So in this case, just to illustrate the point, we thought we'd go ahead and select one of them. So we selected Insight. And by the way, is the company that one of our former panelists was worked for.
Green.
So he's exactly Rob Green. So what you see here, though, is you see it's fulfilled by Insight. But what's interesting is HPE or Hewlett Packard actually takes the order, and they have the customer data, and then they have it fulfilled through Insight, a channel partner, which in some ways is kind of the ideal way to thread the needle in theory, because then you don't have channel conflict. You have the manufacturer taking the order, which is what they would like to do in the end, and have the customer data. And then the partner actually fulfills it. So neither one of them crosses into the other's territory. So that's an example of a company-owned marketplace. I'm going to talk about here. I chose an example of a fiber optic switch. This is a company called Source Engine. And in this case, it's a TE connectivity fiber optic switch. I'm sure everybody has one of those at home. So you can see it's a $400 switch. And if you were to select it, which is click on view pricing, what you see here is it shows that it's the switch. It happens to be discontinued, which implies that it's in the channel, but it's no longer being manufactured, which probably makes it even more valuable. But what Source Engine does is enable somebody to do a search and then quickly identify this and then find out who's actually selling it. So you can see here in the green boxes, there are two companies fulfilled by distributors here, and you can add it to your cart and then have the distributor fulfill it. So conceptually, it's very similar to the HPE model. This is not a company-owned marketplace. It's not a manufacturer running it. It's a third party, but it does illustrate that there are different flavors of this. And again, this is a vertical one because it's about electronic components. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Source Engine indexes something like 500 million parts. So this is a pretty massive marketplace. And I'm sure you're going to argue that these things actually make it less complicated in the channel. Maybe it's better for the buyer. That's a different discussion, but is this better for the seller? And so that leads us to the big question here. You'll see on the next slide. Some of you have seen this slide before. This is my wheel slide, so to speak. But if you take the TE connectivity fiber optic switch and you put it in the middle, you'll see that there are all these different channels by which it can be sold, which is the next concentric circle, and ultimately to a customer, which is the outside concentric circle. And what's interesting here is if you look at just the green, that's kind of the traditional way in which it's been done. So you have phone, fax, salespeople. And if you look at the blue part from, if it was a clock, from say 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, the digital first B2B traditionalists, those are the online versions of the traditional sellers, And so those guys are now a part of the mix. But what this is going to be about is the rest from 8 until about 1 o'clock. All these different marketplaces, horizontal, vertical, company owned, et cetera. And what we want to know is, does adding that extra group from 8 until about 1 o'clock on the clock, is that actually making things simpler for channel conflict, or is it complicating channel conflict? And that's the debate.
That's right, Andy. That's a great setup. And then of course you have your third-party marketplaces, those like Amazon, right? And the big ones that have been in existence for a while. And the one element that we didn't share during that discussion was the element of price competition. In amongst those sellers, and we're going to talk about that during the debate. So there's a lot of elements to this. It's multidimensional as we think about channel conflict. So that was a great setup, Andy. Thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and bring on our contenders. We don't call these people panelists. We call them contenders for a reason, because they're going to go to battle on this issue. So let's go ahead and welcome them into our scene here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Andy, the team. I'm leaning to the side of the fact that marketplaces really simplify, in my opinion, channel conflict. And we're going to talk about why we think that's the case. And I have two fantastic practitioners on my team. The first is Sam, the slasher Swartz. Sam, she's chopping away there. She's ready to slash. And I thought you should have brought a machete or something, or a sword. But Sam, great. Thanks for being here. Sam cuts through her competition down to size as the vice president of e-commerce at Jensen Precast. And Jensen sells concrete. So it's an interesting vertical she's in, and again, a manufacturer. She says, she always puts the customer first. She says, marketplaces are the perfect model to meet customer needs while empowering channels to do what they do best, provide expertise in fulfillment, service, and support, all while allowing resellers to earn the sale, just like we just saw in those examples. Marketplaces are the answer to reducing channel conflict. Wow. Sam, welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Awesome.
All right. Our second contender is Andre the Machine Myhorn. Andre, you got a machine there? No machines? Oh, okay. We'll just do the woot woot. Okay, good. Well, so when Andre is not pummeling marketplace myths into oblivion, my goodness, he is the VP of United States, USG, and go-to-market industry solutions for Spryker Systems. He's thinking about expansion. He's been in this industry for quite a while. He says the companies that expand into marketplaces recognize they can use them to solve customer needs for broad assortment and convenience, as well as address channel conflict. Andre, welcome.
Thanks, Andy and Brian. Awesome to be here.
Awesome. Andy, you want to introduce your team?
Yeah, my team is, I think, more interesting than your team. Starting with Jim. Look, he works for Maui Jim, so he's got to wear the sunglasses. I think he wants to protect the innocent as it gets bloody and such. He doesn't want.
No, he's hiding his tears, Andy, because he's going to lose. Sorry, Jim. Oh,
there you go. All right, so Jim, the Count of Monte Cristo Frollo. By the way, that's taken from Rocky, and I thought it was great, so we had to use it here. So again, Jim works for Maui Jim, which I think everybody knows. I have a pair myself, great sunglasses. Knocking out gray marketers and preserving and building core revenue streams is the name of the game for Jim, who isn't, by the way, Jim of Maui Jim.
Just a Jim of Maui Jim.
Just a Jim.
It's great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so he's the CIO and VP of Digital at Maui Jim, and he believes that channel conflict is a long-term battle on shifting ground, and you must build your commerce ecosystem to withstand technology shifts and meet customers where they want to be. And marketplaces are frankly a distraction from that goal. So he's putting down the market. So Jim, again, great to be here. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so April, the Exterminator Erickson is a returning champion. And we brought in some extra firepower here to take on Brian's much weaker team.
You're going to need it.
So as the VP of Commercial Excellence at Identity and Security Manufacturer HID Global, everybody knows who they are because they have those access cards that you swipe when you get into the building. April is a formidable force in the quest to build revenue growth alongside engaging customer experiences. She says, marketplaces are a race to the bottom on price and cause serious problems with managing third-party sellers. Let there be no doubt the marketplace model in B2B clearly complicates your relationships with valuable traditional partners, and that's key here. So we're going to go into some detail about that. But Brian, hopefully the blood hasn't started spewing yet, so let me pass it back to you.
All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Welcome, our contenders. And I think it's about that time, Andy. Let's rumble. There's the bell. I love that. Andy, here is your time. This round is yours, sir.
Round one, we're going to tackle probably the biggest issue with regard to marketplaces and channel conflict, and it's the idea of transparency, both of price and inventory. Price first. So here's the question. Does a company-operated marketplace undermine your best B2B channel partners by creating an inevitable race to the bottom on pricing? I know we know how April thinks about this, but we're going to give the Simplifies team first crack at this one. So let's go with Andre. What are your thoughts on this? Explain to us how it is that price transparency doesn't complicate channel conflict.
Yeah, maybe in context of all, right? A company-owned marketplace and channel conflict. It's like, look, if you're a manufacturer that needs to offer or wants to offer a direct channel to the customer, right? In order to manage your brand experience, but you have resellers and dealers that are an important part of your ecosystem, you will need to address the channel conflict no matter what, right? So in this case, for instance, a company operated marketplace is in fact actually an awesome tool to address channel conflict, right? It addresses both sides by enabling the digital platform that is, fundamentally a marketplace where these sellers and merchants, come on board and they are, selling through that marketplace. And it allows them to work more closely together. And it at the end, it benefits all three parties, right? You as a manufacturer, because you take ownership and the brand experience, you get the customer insights as you elaborated on, which I think is a big challenge for a lot of the manufacturings today. The reseller, which gets an opportunity to actually participate there, playing part of the marketplace, get the visibility through the manufacturer, and then the customer that obviously gets the benefits of the convenience, the trust that the manufacturer provides, and potentially a full portfolio of the manufacturer. And in this context, when as far as pricing goes, you have all the options on pricing strategy, how you want to apply it, if what the price rules are across your different resellers on the marketplace, but you can control it, to have the flexibility to allow them having discounts or not.
So Sam, let's hear what you have to say on this one from your unique vantage point. I assume you're going to largely agree with Andre's wrong position.
I definitely agree with Andre. And I'll say this too. I think the question of price transparency is a non-issue. This is what buyers are demanding. And it creates trust and supports this critical decision-making. Buyers are out there to make these decisions quickly. They don't have a lot of time. So these marketplaces are saving them time and effort, which is really what's driving value for that buyer. And of course, that's going to drive value for us as a manufacturer, a distributor, or a seller. So I actually think it's this is a non-issue for me. I completely agree with Andre.
Well, I'm never going to disagree with the idea that buyers want things. This is really more a question, and we'll go to the other team here, Complicates. From your perspective as a seller, what does price transparency mean? And I think, you both spoken about some of the challenges with fraud and gray markets, et cetera. So Jim, why don't we go to you first? Share with us your thoughts on that.
I couldn't disagree with the other team more, honestly, Andy. I think it's time for some trash talking. We need to amp up the energy a little bit. I think price transparency is a great idea. It's great in concept, but the reality is you have marketplaces that are littered with all types of sellers. You have gray market sellers. You have people that are putting counterfeit products into those marketplaces, which end up actually disserving those consumers that think they're buying products that are similar to others and that they're merely competing on price. But the reality is, a lot of times you're not really sure what you're getting. So I think that authenticity is a major problem. And, at the end of the day, as a manufacturer, we're responsible for how our brand is received in those marketplaces. And when those sort of bad experiences, you have bad actors that might be popping up on the marketplaces, it is a disintermediation of the relationship between a consumer and hopefully the ideal brand experience as well.
You make an interesting point. And what I think people don't often consider is that they may be showing prices, but the prices may be for fake goods, right? And so it's dragging down the price that's perceived to be there, but it's actually a price for a fake good. But April, let's go over to you on this one. I think you've had some similar experiences with some downstream effects.
Yeah, I so fully agree with I'll call him Maui Jim, my teammate. I just think that concept really does undermine the long-term value, especially in industries where services or value add are important to wrap around. It's not just a product, but there's more to it, right? And I think, when you undermine long-term partnerships and potentially disenfranchise those that need to support and service your product in the field or for the end customer, that's a losing battle. And the other thing I want to say, and specifically in our space, there's plenty of online resellers. There's plenty of partners, authorized partners that are selling online or advertising online. So there's really no need to proliferate. That's my 2 cents.
All right. Well, let's stick with you on this one, and let's go to the other, so the flip side of the coin on transparency. And let's talk about inventory. We talked about pricing transparency, but my experience has been that sellers don't really love the idea of transparency on inventory because it takes away a weapon. If you know there's one left, then it changes the dynamic versus if there are thousands, and you'd rather kind of hold that back. But why don't you share with us what you've seen at HID on this idea of revealing, inventory positions?
Yeah, I think it's such a germane question, like right now, especially as we find ourselves in this, kind of crazy global market, economic conditions that are ensuing right now. For so many manufacturers, we know and we hear that inventory is scarce, or we're kind of lumpy in terms of when we're getting inventory, when ports are open and whatnot. And so I think a lot of manufacturers are living in this world of allocation, right? And trying to introduce some sort of fairness in terms of how to, provide product out to the marketplace. And so I think, while transparency sounds, again, like the first point sounds like a great, tool to provide, one player, coming up and gobbling up, all the inventory or something, could have some really deleterious downstream impact. And so our approach, just briefly at HID, has been kind of simple, I guess I'll say simple. We confirm what the customer asks for. So if they would, hey, can we buy 20, ID card printers? We'll confirm that number back if it's good. Yes, here you can have 20. Of course, we do that in real time, but we don't. So we're not transparently showing everything we have, but we're confirming in real time, that their ask, and we found that to be a kind of a simply elegant solution.
Interesting. I know we're running short on time, so Jim, just a quick word on why you guys handle this at Maui, Jim.
So everything April said, +5. I know we're running out of time. So I think the allocation question is definitely one that pops up. I also think that every manufacturer is looking at margin calculations by channel. So, the question of what product is going where definitely is going to be a part of anyone that's looking at profit optimization. And ultimately, I think it's also about the availability. Getting a good idea of what sell-through is sometimes can be difficult in marketplaces. And I think that really understanding trend data can also be a little bit challenging. So tapping into that in other channels can sometimes be a little bit easier.
So I'm going to get the other team in here very quickly. I know, Brian, we're running short here. So
I know,
Sam,
but we got to weigh in. Go ahead.
Sam, give us a quick thought on this one.
Yeah, my thought is that, this is what buyers are looking for, is that transparency, but also marketplaces do give sellers control over what they list and don't list. And they also give them a lot of control and reporting features that allows them to look at that sell-through quickly and in general in real time. So I think I completely disagree with what the other side is saying.
Well, on that note, Andre, we'll catch you on the next round on this one.
We're out of time, guys. We got to go to the poll.
Back to Brian on this one.
Yeah, let's bring it up, guys. Let's bring up the poll. Cole, thank you. So those in the audience, please place your vote. The question here, does channel transparency simplify or complicate price transparency? Simplify or complicate channel conflict? Andy, my question, is this a buyer's world or a seller's world? Jason Hine just chimed in. Jason Hine from Bloom Reach, ex-Amazon. The days where market prices are secret are over. They're done. So I think we got to step it up a little. Companies focused on hiding pricing and inventory levels are playing a losing game, in my opinion. And there are ways to control your price and your inventory. As Sam just said, put the customer first. Marketplaces are a way to do that. Andy, what did you think?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're done with your speech there?
Yeah, I'm done with my speech.
Okay.
Go ahead. You go.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the question, though. The buyers clearly want it. And in the end, maybe the buyers will get what they want to get. I mean, that's the nature of capital.
You want to run Sears? Is that what you're saying?
No, but the point is, does this complicate or simplify the channel conflict issue? And I think revealing this information very clearly complicates it. There's no question about it. In fact, I have a quote here from James Asquith from Parker Pipes and Fittings. He says on LinkedIn, he said, in the industrial metals industry, the number one resistance to marketplace adoption is the frequent change of prices. Just managing that kind of stuff, not to mention the transparency issue where people can manipulate that, Like we talked about earlier, there's a fake stuff on there. It is clearly more complicated. Clearly.
Andy, okay. So first, okay, there's ways to control them. No, not next round yet. There's ways to control your pricing and your inventory. And honestly, you've got, I mean, if you're doing that well, look, you're not, the days of hiding these things from the customer are over. We learned this in consumer a long time ago.
Well, actually, I like April's solution. I don't think you hide it. I just think you don't reveal it. You do a dance. And I think that's probably the better way to do it. But this idea of just openly revealing all this stuff and allowing everybody and their brother to come in, I think it's really complex and complicated for sellers.
Well, I think there's channel management controls and things like that you put in place, but ultimately you need to go where the customer is. And I think if you do that right and well, channel conflict does not become the issue that everyone's making it out to be. Okay, we are out of time. I get the last word. We got to go to round 2. Ring the bell. Well timed. All right, round 2 is mine. Andy, if you would keep time for me, please. Let's bring our contenders back. On round 2, we're going to talk about the monster in the room, Amazon, right? Amazon responsible for almost half of U.S. e-commerce, 70% of product search. This is close to my heart, folks. Yeah, I've worked on Amazon for many years. I got a firm that runs Amazon programs for e-commerce company or B2B companies. Our question here is this. Does selling on Amazon simplify or complicate channel conflict for B2B manufacturers? And we're going to go first to my Simplify team, and we're going to go first to Sam. Sam, what do you think on this topic?
Yeah, so my opinion on this is this. You have to be really concerned about owning the real estate online. When you look at the wheel that Andy showed at the beginning, the real takeaway for me there is that there are different types of customers around shopping at different places around that wheel. And so you need to be where they are. When I ran marketplaces at a former company, that revenue was about 15% overall from marketplaces. 99% from new customers. And that revenue does not exist if you're not on those channels. So, again, complicated channel conflict to me in this case is someone else is grabbing your real estate. And that's more complicated than being where your customers are.
Now it's a relevance question too. Good. Andre, what do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It was a great picture, actually, Andy, that you showed. So I 100% agree. The other thing is that you cannot underestimate, in my opinion, is that Amazon basically became the default product search engine. It surpassed Google like a few years ago. So if you're not on there, you are missing out just because of that initial search and investigation and finding the right products. And if you cannot be found, again, like those customers want, or they won't become a customer, for you. And at the end, if you're on Amazon, someone will probably, and so you lose control to a certain extent of your brands, and I think there are tools, and, Brian, your company, I'm sure, is discussing it quite a bit, is like how you manage that brands and your information in context of Amazon.
That's right. But we do have price competition. You don't control the customer. I think these are some of the things the other team might say. Let's go first to Jim. What do you think about Amazon?
Yeah, I don't know that findability is really what we're talking about here. We're talking about simplification and complication. No one would doubt that Amazon is a search tool. I would definitely agree with that. And we can see that in our metrics, absolutely. But the key aspect here is what happens after they find it, okay? What does that product listing look like? Is it the right product listing? Is it the blessed one? Is the buy box going to move to a product listing that doesn't have the right information? These are all things that move out of our control as a manufacturer. And again, it's not as though we inherently think that marketplaces are bad. I think what we're arguing here today is that it does create a lot of complication and a lot of additional management. And I think that's also the explosions of the different types of marketplaces. Even though Amazon is the big dog, that's not true in every region of the world. There are regional marketplaces that have a much bigger and stronger and deeper footprint into their geographies. So I think findability, absolutely. Complication, absolutely.
Got it. Okay. Well, April, what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, Brian, I feel like a little bit of the twilight zone here. I feel like if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're not asking, is Amazon a search engine or is Amazon, a place where everybody goes? No question. I think all humans, at least based in this part of the world, would agree. But I think your question was around, does it create conflict for B2B manufacturers? And speaking as one, it does. I mean, that's just a fact. It's also a bit of a race to commoditization. And we have seen, like, this is real, we have seen end customers buy our products on Amazon through an unauthorized channel. They come back to us for support, and they come back to us trying to understand how to make the product work, how to fix problems, how to fix breaks. And we have to kind of re-educate people on the value of integration, support, the reason that we sell through that, the more traditional, or I actually don't like the word traditional, but through a value-added channel. And so no question, it causes conflict.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yes. The question is about, does it complicate conflict? So thank you. Thank you guys. And I think, I'll have some thoughts on this when we go to our break. But really the next question is moving beyond Amazon and thinking about, the other marketplaces, horizontal marketplaces like Alibaba, Rakuten, Zoro, others that are sort of across, a channel. Do those complicate or simplify channel conflict for manufacturers? Let's go back to, let's say with you, April, on this one, on your team. Go ahead.
Just briefly, because it's to me very similar to Amazon. I mean, Jim kind of said it as well. There are a lot of similar and maybe some regionality differences, but there's some similarity. And Amazon might be a little bit special, but they all require some degree of management as a manufacturer. And I do think they create some sort of ubiquity and commoditization that isn't favorable, especially when you're not a commodity product. I will say specific to like the likes of Alibaba. Probably due to proximity and market nuances, we've seen a lot more like trademark infringement, knockoff products showing up on marketplaces like Alibaba. The joke is, well, it sounds like HID is not HID.
Okay, fair enough. Jim, what do you think on this one?
Completely agree. I think that the service aspect is extremely important to us as a brand. And, when Andy brought up that initial image of the switch, the types of products that people are buying also influences what that experience is going to be like. And I think April brought up, the idea of commodification. There are certain products where the attributes of the product may not be as personal to like fit, with glasses as an example. A lot of times you don't know if you like these glasses until you put them on your face. And the question is what is that experience going to be like if you don't like the fit? Are you going to get the same level of response, or are you going to end up just posting something, waiting for a response, as opposed to if you buy, through another channel, or a Nordstrom or something like that, where you can speak to a customer representative directly.
Got it. Makes sense. Andre, I imagine you're not agreeing with their line of thinking. Go ahead.
Well, look, I mean, I don't agree that if you're not on a marketplace that you don't get the counterfeit products. I mean, that's going to happen no matter what. So I would argue rather that if you are participating, you have a better awareness about it and you take other actions because you offer the products. So you want to make sure that they are legit, they come from the manufacturer, etc. We also actually talk to some companies that have certain channel partners that work in certain regions. And I think for some of these marketplaces like Alibaba, it might be a great opportunity to bring channel partners in and sell on behalf of the manufacturer, for instance, through those type of marketplaces.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Got it. And one last word from you, Sam. Anything you want to add here?
I've got nothing to add. I think Andre really hit the nail on the head here.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Let's go to our poll question. Bring that up, please. And audience, you have a moment to vote here. You have 2 minutes. Does selling on Amazon simplify or complicate channel conflict for B2B manufacturers? Andy, your team is arguing that people should put on a blindfold and ignore Amazon and just to hope for the best. It sounds like
that's not what they're arguing.
I don't know. What do you think they're arguing?
Amazon complicates channel conflict. I think that's that's an identity at this point. You can argue that, it's better to sell on Amazon, but there's a good point here about the cost benefit analysis. I mean, I'd like to have a time machine, but I don't think anybody knows how to build one. And if you want to build one, it's probably going to take a long time, maybe more than my lifetime. So I might have an ambition for something, but the reality may be very different. And so Amazon is a calculation for a lot of B2B manufacturers. I'm never opposed to looking at all your channels, but this question is about, is it more complex for a B2B manufacturer to sell through Amazon? And I just think it is. Now, I know you run a company where you simplify everything and you got rainbows and butterflies and it all works out.
Okay. Yes, we have those, but we have more than that. We have substance too, Andy Hoare. So listen, here's how I look at it, right? So April's talking a lot about commoditization. If you do it right, a proactive Amazon program can actually reduce channel conflict. Why? Because if you take the right approach, which by the way, folks, is a seller central approach, to Amazon, don't sell wholesale because that will be a race to the bottom on your price to Amazon. Many of you probably are, and you're feeling the pain. You should be looking at a 3P selling approach or selling through a qualified distributor and then managing your channels. Guess what? By proactively managing it, you can watch for that counterfeit items. You can watch and manage your pricing. When you have unauthorized resellers come in and you manage them. Listen, but the answer is not ignoring Jason Hine, another quote he said, well, gosh, the best sellers in marketplaces are very opportunistic, and he's right. And they will find ways to get a product on a marketplace if they notice it's not there. But to you, that's playing defense. But to the sellers, it's an opportunity. If you are not proactively in Amazon and in some of these other marketplaces, they will control you, which exacerbates channel conflict because then it becomes a race to the bottom on price. That's my point. I rest my case. Andy, any last moments before we go back to the next round?
Is that like a string theory, a unified theory?
It is a string theory. Yeah.
It all seemed to come together so beautifully.
It did though? That's perfect, wasn't it? Anyway. All right. You got anything to add, Andy, before we go to the next round?
I think you make a good point. I will cede that. But
all right. What do you know? I made it once. Round 3. Ring the bell. There it is. All right, Andy, this one's yours.
Okay, so round 3, we're going to get even more specific about marketplaces, and we're going to address those industry-specific or vertical industry-specific marketplaces. So here's the first question. Does selling on a vertical or industry-specific marketplace, like a Chem Direct, for example, in the chemical industry space, simplify or complicate channel conflict? Let's go to the Complicates team first. Jim, tell us your thoughts on the vertical industry stuff. I know you guys deal with lifestyle brands, et cetera. Tell us a little bit about how you sell through those guys and tell Brian why it's more complicated.
I don't know. He's bulling around the ring pretty well right now. So it's been interesting to see how the markets have developed. And I do have great respect for the expansion of what we've seen in marketplaces. And that's the best part about being in a debate like this is seeing both sides of it. And in representing a brand, I manage the P&L for B2B and B2C. So these are relationships that we have with our direct customers, right? And then we also have key channels, right? So if you're going to buy a pair of sunglasses from, say, a Nordstrom or a Tommy Bahama, something like that. And then we do have some eyeglass specific, which I think you would call them sort of verticals that are, carrying our product as well. And we know that it's never going to go away. And then the ubiquity of any type of retailer being able to have a presence, and certainly the lift that's been made available by marketplaces, has allowed people to move with velocity, which I think is fantastic if you're an emerging business, right? But I also believe that the component of our brand and our product that we sell is the product, but there's so much more that goes along with this. So we don't look at it as control. We don't look at it as though we feel like we can completely make sure that only the channels we want are going to have visibility, or we're going to really drive consumers down one path or the other. But I think what we're trying to do is to make sure we position the technology, the people, and the processes within our business to make sure we can support those folks in an active way. So as you look at a company, this really requires a lot of change in how you manage marketplaces. It's very different than your key channel relationships. It's very different than your core channel relationships. And from that perspective, I would say it complicates because it requires structural changes, it requires investments, and it requires changes in business processes that may not have existed before. And anyone that has done this, and Brian, you would agree with this because you have done this. And if you can honestly say that it simplifies things, then I'm going to question whether you've really done it or not. So I say it complicates it.
All right. All right.
Well, let's hear from April too. I mean, I think you have a similar opinion. Didn't you tell me that it's a more intense version of an Amazon, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to describe it, Andy. Like the intensity level is higher because they're probably closer to the market and better understanding of the market. Yeah, I agree with what Jim has shared. The other one thing I just want to deposit, I do think it depends on how niche an industry might be. We heard Samantha represents like a cement industry, like that. I don't know if that's niche or not, but it's really unique. And I feel like the spectrum of sunglasses to cement is pretty wide, and I do think it could vary. One thing that I've seen happen though that I think we as manufacturers need to be really mindful of is this industry specific site marketplace could be experiencing, the reps themselves could be experiencing incentives or spiffs. And when we think about, well, what's best for the end customer and what product if they come in looking to buy, that could be all out the window when someone's incentivized to push or, highlight a certain product versus low light yours, even if it's, not what's best for the customer. So I'm leery of this one is what I would say. Very leery. Interesting. So Sam, let's go to you on this one. I'm not sure if you've seen the emergence of this in your industry yet, but you kind of feel the time is ripe for these vertical marketplaces, even in concrete, right?
I do. And I think the industry that we're in is really about like infrastructure and construction. And I think what helps simplify this for manufacturers and for industries like that, where there might not be a whole lot of digitization that's happened yet, with folks like us and folks in these manufacturing industries, is that it does actually simplify getting out there to your to potential customers. And one more thing I'll add about these vertical or industry specific marketplaces too is that they have a lot of domain and customer expertise. So while a marketplace like Amazon might not have, some functionality for, helping your customers or potential customers create submittals or get the right kind of quotes that they need, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for these vertical marketplaces to provide those types of experiences. And I think that helps kind of like bring the right people together at the right time and save everyone a lot of time, both from the manufacturer, the seller point of view, as well as the customer point of view. So I think they do, even if they don't exist yet in my industry, I think there's a lot of opportunity to simplify, what might be perceived as channel conflict, as those things start to pop up, and they will.
So Andre, final word on this one. It's a different animal. These vertical marketplaces are definitely different. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think about it like more really like specialized and more niche marketplaces that have great opportunities because you provide expertise, in domain expertise, as Sam said, and, commoditized products, maybe not as much. And I think there's an opportunity here to not only reach new customers and convert them over to the direct relationship, which I have talked to at B2B Online just recently, actually, which is happening for some of those marketplaces. You build the initial engagement on a specific marketplace, but then you take over the customer relationship because you get the customer insights. And the other hand is, these niche marketplaces, channel partners can support services. They can offer other products, that are complementary or adjacent to what's being offered. And I think so. There's an opportunity to even bring channel partners in as well.
Okay.
And by the way, but what I have seen, sorry, Andy, is also like if it's done and set up the right way, the management shouldn't be that big of an issue, right? You have your merchant portal, you manage your product assortment that you're offering, and you get the orders back that you're fulfilling potentially and hopefully the traditional way as done before.
Fair point. Let's go with our final question here. And it's really about a unique kind of marketplace that maybe is a marketplace that you set up for an industry. This is really very, very specialized. We saw this with Honeywell, where they set one up that was an industry kind of, and they put their name at the top, but it was everybody was invited to join sort of thing. Let's go back to you, Sam, for a second on this one. What are your thoughts on that? Would you ever see something like this in your industry?
Yeah, I do think that this is a big opportunity. I mean, back to what I was saying about kind of providing these specialized services that are very normal in an industry like mine. I think is something that really could, be very successful. Something else, in the kind of on the construction side too, is their bids are going both ways, and there's not a platform really for that. When I think about what Honeywell did with Go Direct Trade, I mean, they're taking a highly fragmented market and bringing it all into one channel. And if that's not simplifying channel conflict, I don't know what that looks like then, because I really feel like once you start bringing people together to create those relationships, that makes it easier for everybody. So I think it's a huge opportunity for buyers, sellers, the owners of the marketplace. Kind of brings everybody what they want real quick.
So Andre, give us a quick thought on this, and we'll give the Complicates team the final word.
No, I think I 100% agree with what Jim said. I don't know, there's nothing more to add. I think it was great. Okay,
well, let's go over to the Complicates team. And apparently the Simplifies team says that more sites, more competition, more everything is so much easier to manage. So why don't we go with you first, Jim? Your final word on this one. Would you see something like this emerging, and would this make your life easier?
Oh, I just want to work for these companies with infinite resources, infinite time. It sounds like a wonderful place to be. If you find a job like that, please let me know. I know that I'm constrained by time and space, so it does get to be a little bit more difficult. I think that, yes, there is a place for this, but it has to be done selectively. And it's almost like a dinner party. Right? Who do you want to sit and eat your meal with? Do you want to be with people that have similar ideas and a similar approach to enjoying an experience and making it leisurely? Or are your dinner companions people that just want to, go grab a burger? Neither is good nor bad, but you got to make sure whoever you're eating with has the same vision in mind. So I think picking those dinner partners consistently and accurately can be a challenge. So I say it complicates.
We're just about up on time. Andy, any last words from the exterminator?
Yeah, April.
Yeah, I guess what I would quickly say is, does it align with your company's strategy? And if it does, or your core competencies of like who you want to be when you grow up? Yeah, great. I would think it does not for most manufacturers, but that's just my viewpoint.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. April, let's go ahead and go to the poll. Thank you, contenders. That was a great argument. Great set of arguments. Let's bring up the poll question. Does selling on a third-party marketplace simplify or complicate channel conflict? Now, Andy, the question here is interesting. I was thinking of a quote that we saw from Harry Joyner, the e-commerce recruiter. He said, "My experience has been that for manufacturers, especially in e-com, represent a blind man in the elephant dilemma. They can't even really agree on what it is, much less wrap their brains around how to develop and run their own marketplace." I mean, I'm making kind of Jim's argument there, which is, limited time and resources. Should, manufacturers, can they even execute on this? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know how, again, this is about vertical and industry specific marketplaces. How are these supposed to work? I mean, aren't there a litany of examples of telecom companies that put together these marketplaces? I remember, wasn't the competitor to Napster going to be some music site that was going to have everybody working together? And you know what ended up happening? It didn't work out because individual self-interest actually took over. So just from a complication perspective, these are not easy to run. And kudos to Honeywell for running theirs. But I think it was a unique situation due to a very unique person in Lisa Butters. But these are very difficult to run. In theory, again, like this whole concept, in theory, all this stuff sounds great. I'm going to go with Jim. In reality, not so easy.
But I think there's real benefits. And actually, at the end of the day, if you're willing to actually do the work, and there's platforms, by the way, one of which is on our call today that support this, Spriker. The technology is there, Andy. The best practices are there, and there's a real business case here. And you freaking wrote this yourself when you were at Forrester. The manufacturers have a business case for this because it gives the channel a path to fulfill the order and continue. It eliminates simplifies channel conflict. And if you're a distributor, my goodness, your value to your end customer, a lot of it is in breadth of product. Isn't a marketplace using these technologies and best practices, which are now well established, isn't a marketplace a good way, if you launched it or bought one that exists in the market already, a vertical marketplace, isn't that a great way to expand your assortment, deliver more value to your customer, don't give them a reason to go somewhere else, right, Andy?
It's got to be a tight fit. But let me just say before we introduce Andre here, how dare you use my words against me, Brian?
Hey, man, you wrote them. So I think we got to go to Andre here.
Let's go to our final thought here from Andre on this.
Yeah, especially with the pandemic, I think customers are forced to digital channels first and foremost, right? So customers pick and choose when and how they want to engage and where to buy. And I think digital is forcing companies to rethink aspects of the channel strategy, and it varies by the company, right? As we discussed here. So some might start competing with existing partners, but there are opportunities to explore new revenue streams. And one of them is marketplaces, right? Because they provide an opportunity to create benefits, to the seller on one hand and to the customer on the other. And I think for the manufacturer, it first and foremost provides access and insights to customer. And as manufacturers historically rely on relationships with their dealer network, it's a win-win situation or a solution for every party to set them up within the manufacturer marketplace, and have them provide offers as merchants. And the good thing is with marketplaces, if done right, again, the infrastructure stays in place for all the sellers and merchants that are there. So you don't have to disrupt, how products are fulfilled, what the backend systems are, what some of the technology implications are. All of that should be done by the right order splitting, order orchestration tools, right? So, and it's true. Can it be scary? Can it be complex? Absolutely. But I think with the right technology, setting up a marketplace is easier than some might think, and you can start small and then grow. And so by teaming up, for instance, with a company like Spriker, you can take the advantage of a flexible and composable marketplace, solution that allows you to build, anything that you want and test out new revenue streams, and onboard merchants at the speed that is relevant for you.
Interesting. Well, thank you very much, Andre. Appreciate your point of view there. I think you're making the argument that it simplifies channel conflict. So thanks so much. And I think it's about that time for the decision. Here it comes. Love that. So good. Andy, we got a question in here from Ernie Atkins. He said, why has no one discussed the loss of gross profit when selling on any marketplace versus a traditional channel, which is an interesting thing we didn't cover. And in some ways, Ernie, what I've found is it's sometimes a different use case or channel that's buying from the marketplace. You're actually reaching a different customer than might be served by that traditional channel. And therefore that further avoids and simplifies channel conflict. Right, Andy?
Well, Brian, I thought you were going to use the old Saturday Night Live skit where they said, where they're giving change to people. And they said, wait a minute, how do you make money? And they're like, volume. So, I thought you were going to say to Ernie that, hey, you're going to lose money on every sale and progressively so, but over time, you'll make more money on volume.
Right. No, well, we know that doesn't work, it's another interesting comment from Jason here, Jason Hyde. Ultimately, it's not your decision where customers go to look for your product. If you wall them off, it's just a risk to your customer. So I think that's kind of my, thinking about kind of three takeaways from my perspective, Andy, and then we'll love to
hear. We'll have to probably make this pretty quick. So we're running out of time.
How much time we got? I'll just go quickly. One is you need to be where your customers want to buy. And I think that the marketplace model is actually not only a simplifier, but an eliminator of conflict, because it really accelerates the inevitable demise of irrelevant channels, number one. Number two, Amazon is a must. It's a search engine. You need to be there. And there's ways to control channel conflict. And number three, it is complicated from an execution standpoint. But as Andre just said, the tools are there. What did you think, Andy?
I'll just be really quick and say, I think actually it comes down to what level of disruption does it bring to the industry? Toyota Material Handling has an interesting take on this. They basically replaced a dealer locator with a company-owned marketplace, but they don't have third-party sellers there competing against each other on price. Right. That might be a leap too far. Maybe they've got it right, doing something maybe a little closer to home, which is just automating the dealer process. And on that point, I would say that simplifies it. We start including inventory and pricing and third parties. You could argue that gets a lot more complicated.
So we asked a question on LinkedIn. I promised I'd give an answer to this. On LinkedIn, this was the poll we posted a few days ago. Should B2B manufacturers launch their own online marketplaces to avoid channel conflict? Our LinkedIn poll with 10,000 people looking at this said 71% said yes. Yes, Andy. 29% said no. Let's go to our poll results and figure out.
That make you feel good, Brian? That make you feel good?
All right, it does. It does. All right, here's the first poll. First question: does price?
That are the real answers.
Complicate 53. Oh, come on, people. All right, I lost that one. All right, fine, but it was close. What is our second one? This
Brian, thank you for playing.
Getting crushed again. This is terrible.
Here's the thing, Brian. When it's given a fair hearing, and people get to consider all the opinions, not one of your flash polls where you say use leading language.
Flash polls. Get a
chance to weigh in here. It's a more considered opinion. Let's put it that way.
All right, fine. Round three. What do we got? Oh man, I give up. April Erickson, you won again. You and the guy on the island, man, Mr. Furlow. Guys, don't worry, Team Simplify. We will be back. Okay.
I think it was the sunglasses myself.
It might have been the sunglasses. All right, you can put the sunglasses on. We know you're not crying, Jim. Good work, guys. Good arguments, though, really, for both sides here. Thank you all for joining us. So those of you, I want to say thank you to our panelists, our contenders. Everyone, thank you for joining us today for our unwebinar, and we will see you next time on the next Master B2B Thought Leadership event.